CNN somehow is getting worse. Now, a lot of you may be like, Shark, for one, who cares? 2, that's funny. 3, rest in piss, you won't be missed. I'm laughing to the bank, pack watch, all those things that you would imagine that would be going on, right? CNN. Yes, CNN, the news broadcasting network, is getting worse, and they will be very much worse sometime in the near future, right? Now, what do I mean by that? Let's start somewhere, and you guys may have heard of this, but this is only a small piece to a massive issue that's going on. I don't watch CNN, but I do obviously keep up with a lot of the things that they do, simply because they do news. I do news, and so I have to keep up with what a lot of other channels are up to, and this has actually been quite curious for me. So Brian Stelter is leaving YouTube after cancellation of reliable sources. Now, Brian Stelter was a political talking head on CNN. He hosted a show called Reliable Sources. Reliable Sources has been around for, if I remember correctly, around 30 years. It's the longest running show on CNN and also one of the most watched shows on CNN. This is one of their primetime weekend shows. And all of a sudden, instantly, they just pulled the cord on it. It's been quite interesting how that works. Brian Stelter, top media reporter at CNN, is leaving the network after executives decided to cancel his Sunday show, Reliable Sources, and one of the first big programming moves under new leadership at the company. The final edition of the show will be on Sunday, a spokesperson for CNN said. So no, they didn't fire him. They just canceled his show, and a show that's been running on CNN for longer than I've been alive. And so he decided to leave the network because of that. He didn't actually get fired. He had 3 years left in his contract, but they decided to cut the cord really quick. Now, you may be wondering, why should you care? Why should you care about Brian Stelter, this loser, who works for the multi-billion-dollar multinational company CNN, right? Why should that matter to you? Well, a couple of reasons, right? For one, Reliable Sources actually wasn't that bad of a show. And Reliable Sources took its, in the age of Trump and post-Trump and our now radicalization of the Republican Party and the strong rightward lean that the party has taken over the last couple of years, he's actually been a pretty decent voice for reason, right? So I actually didn't watch his show much, but I did find that it was quite interesting when it was around. Now, this isn't just something normal and that will pass, all right? Like I said, this is just a small piece in something that's far more insidious going on within CNN, and it all comes down to their new boss. Thank you, Trump. And I know Trump likes the idea of this, but Chris Litch, okay? Mr. Chris Litch, okay, is the new chairman of CNN, appointed by and endorsed by the new CEO of, the company. And you may have heard of them recently about what's going on. WarnerMedia, Warner Brothers Discovery, or Warner Bros. Discovery, right? Which is a new weird like chimera amalgamation of two companies, which was Warner Brothers and the Discovery Channel, which recently did a merger. And if you guys didn't know, CNN is actually owned by them. A lot of people did not know, but CNN is actually owned by them. So how it goes is CNN is owned by HBO, is owned by WarnerMedia, is owned by Warner Bros. Discovery. And so there's a couple of like things in between there. But for a lot of people who were subscribed to HBO Max or have been hearing about some of the things that's been going on about HBO and Warner Bros. Discovery, this outing of Brian Stelter and the cancellation of the show Reliable Sources is just downstream of a lot of that's been going on. And I promise you it's far worse than you may have even thought in the first place. I want to take a little look here. Here's a little segment that Brian Stelter did on his show Reliable Sources, which was incredibly interesting for me. We didn't cover it, but I want you to take a little look here.
Is it possible to make Fox News viewers change their minds about key issues just by having them change the channel? That's what a new study suggests. It's titled The Manifold Effects of Partisan Media on Viewers' Beliefs and Attitudes. The researchers paid some Fox News fans to watch CNN for 30 days, and then they asked them some questions. The results are fascinating. So let's bring in David Brockman and Joshua Calla. They conducted this study in September of 2020, and it's just been published this week. Welcome to you both. Let's not waste any time. David, what did you find?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. So what we did is we recruited a fairly large group of people who predominantly watched Fox News up until September 2020. And in September 2020, we paid them to watch CNN instead at the time at which they usually watch Fox News. And then afterwards, we asked them a variety of questions about what they knew about the world and their attitudes about current events and people like Donald Trump. That was during the Trump presidency, of course. And I think the real key finding here from our perspective is essentially that we find that partisan media is sort of hiding information from voters. And I think there's kind of an analogy to Putin's Russia, where right now Russians we know are not getting all the information about what's actually happening in Ukraine. And in the same way that we found during the Trump presidency, those watching Fox News weren't getting all the information about what was really happening, for example, with COVID and otherwise in the Trump administration, that then they started seeing on CNN and they said, oh, wow, I had no idea. I didn't know all this because Fox News wasn't telling me.
So, incredibly interesting segment that you wouldn't see on places like Fox News, obviously because they're lying to their viewers. And so these are the types of things that Brian Stelter did. And honestly, they're not that bad. But that won't be fitting in the new view of what CNN wants to be in the eyes of Warner Bros. Discovery's new CEO and Chris Litch, the new CNN chairman. Let's take a look at this really quick. CNN boss Chris Litch warns anxious staffers over more changes after axing of reliable sources in the exit of Brian Stelter. CNN chairman and CEO Chris Litch said that there are going to be more changes that are coming, and he has changed his mind on allowing nice things to happen on CNN. Pray that he will not change his mind further. According to sources who were present, Litch told CNN employees in Friday's well-attended editorial meeting, there will be moves you may not agree with or understand. Some took that to mean that they will not like some of the changes. He added, I want to acknowledge to everyone that this is a time of change. I know that it is unsettling. Litch also expressed some irritation over some media reports that CNN plans to characterizing them as incorrect assumptions. The exec stressed to the staff that those are fluid plans. They're already known by management and a few of the inner circle. So what could they be talking about, right? What could they be talking about at the moment? Well, CNN has been going through some changes, okay? Obviously, that's downstream of Warner, and Warner has been up to some very interesting things. Warner recently lost $20 billion in market cap while they were trying to cut $3 billion in costs. Now, if you were a HBO Max subscriber or somebody who watches animation, or you're a fan of these types of things, you may have realized that some wacky things were going on with Warner for the last couple of weeks and for the last couple of months. During the merger agreement between Discovery and Warner, they decided that they would be doing things along the lines of writing off, taking shows and taking properties that they have and that they own and start just cutting them from the company and just destroying them, getting rid of them, to use them to write off debt and taxes to the government so they can get some extra money. The new CEO he came in guns blazing and said that he's gonna fix up Warner, and he's gonna make sure that they are fiscally responsible, and they're gonna get them on the right path, all right? And in doing so, he's basically destroyed the company. He's kind of blown up the entire company, and it's only going to get worse. And now, it's not just Warner, okay? Like I said, CNN, who many of you and we did not know that was owned by Warner. Also, Cartoon Network is going to be downstream of this. Cartoon Network's streaming site has been cut. CNN's streaming site has been cut. HBO is being destroyed as well. The reason is because the new HBO CEO, for one, doesn't believe in streaming and believes that cable media is the future for America, and that's the reason why they need to be focusing everything there. But also because they want to cut diversity. The new CEO of Warner is not only somebody who's like an old head who believes in like cable, but also somebody who is deeply conservative. He's a socially conservative person, and they knew of that when he was coming in, and now he's using his time to bring up those conservative values and make HBO, Warner, CNN, and Cartoon Network conform to those conservative values and try to court to middle America or the center. So basically what's happening is he wants to move everything under the Warner Bros. Discovery umbrella to the right. That's what he would like to do. He believes that the cartoons are too woke and the CNN is too woke and CNN and and Cartoon Network is too woke and things are going to start changing. Former HBO Max executives say that the streaming service has been left with a few people of color to oversee its diverse slate of programming as Warner Bros. Discovery continues its ongoing corporate reshuffling. The platform has reportedly laid off 70 people this month, and that includes the entire teams overseeing unscripted kids and family and international content, according to two former HBO Max executives who asked not to be named. Those three divisions responsible for buying shows from production companies and creators working closely with them during the production are now completely gone. They're just gone. Also, I'll take this moment to say ripperoni to anybody who was a Amphibia fan, and double triple ripperoni to anybody who was an Infinity Train fan. Just so you know, Infinity Train, I don't think there's any possible way to watch some animations that came out on Cartoon Network legally anymore. Just period. There's no legal way to watch them anymore because they've gotten rid of them from HBO Max, and a lot of them aren't being replayed. Oh, Amphibia's Disney? Oh, my bad. Sorry. But I do know Infinity Train. That one's just completely fucking gone. That one is just, vanished and is not coming back. Okay? Now, not only is it the CEO, David Zaslav, that's helping push this rightward trend with CNN and Cartoon Network and other things under the company, it's also a dark shadow. It's also a little spooky boy, a little rich spooky boy who has supplanted himself as a big player in HBO and Warner Bros. And this person is John Malone, okay? Or John Maloney. I forget which one it is. Why billionaire John Maloney's shadow looms over CNN. Now, this person, imagine what like Elon Musk was doing to Twitter, but only he was successful and not stupid. And that's the dangerous part about this guy. He's very rich. He's not as stupid as Elon Musk, and he has the same plans of moving a company rightward. And he was one of the biggest investors for Warner Bros. Discovery, and he's been using his money and his power to move up the ladder. He now sits on the board, and he's now making a lot of these decisions. Oh, so he shut the fuck up? Yeah, a lot of people may not even heard of his name before, and that's the scary part. CNN is in flux, and its new owner and its new boss, who promises to remake news channels, has told employees to prepare for a time of change. Most of these changes have yet to manifest, but some of the ones, like canceling long-running shows like Reliable Sources and pushing out anchor Brian Stelter, has already unsettled CNN employees and viewers. But the biggest question floating over one of the world's largest and most important news organizations is, why is it changing? Is it because of CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, its owner, wants the overhaul, or is it at the behest of a conservative billionaire investor and its company who sits on the board? The billionaire is John Maloney, a legend of cable TV business, and who has a deep, long-standing ties with David Zaslav, the CEO of WBD. People close to both men insist that Zaslav is remaking CNN because he wants to for both business and editorial reasons, and not because Maloney has told him to. But complicating the narrative is, in fact, that Maloney has repeatedly wished in public for CNN to remake itself, and his prescription happens to sync up with CNN's new agenda, a plan to steer the channel away from what Maloney has called a liberal bias, they say, that muddles opinion and news, and shift towards supposedly centrist and just the facts bent reporting, which is quite curious. It's quite curious. He said repeatedly that he wants CNN to evolve. He said there's been too many talking heads, and he said that there's too many people who give opinion on things that are happening. They don't just like say things. He wants them to just kind of say things and not give their opinion on it whatsoever, even though the biggest news channel at the moment, which is Fox News, is almost completely opinion based. And you know what's really curious is that the model for what these people want to do to CNN is actually make it far more like Fox News. Here's what he had to say. Fox News, in my mind, has followed an interesting trajectory of trying to have actual journalism embedded in a program schedule of all opinions. So he He says Fox News is more fact-based. They do news. Yeah, he's completely deranged. He is out of his mind. Fox News does news. Now, why would he say that? A couple of reasons. I think that he's serious, okay? And here's the really wild thing, okay? We talk about this every now and again, but what is politics? What is a politic? All right. How does one do a politic? Okay. There are many different definitions, but I think when it comes to your average human being, I think politics is something that you argue. And that's like it, right? If you can argue it, and if it's being argued, then it's political. But if it's something that you in the group in which you're around already believes, then it's not political. It's not a political statement anymore. It's very curious, right? So basically what I mean is, and this is, everybody's gone through this before. Everybody's had something like this happen. Let's say you're in a group of people. Let's say you're in a lefty group, okay? And then somebody's like, my landlord's shitty. And they're like, there's like, they're like, what took you so long? And they're like, I was on a call with my landlord. They're really shitty, trying to get him to fix my washing machine. It broke. They don't want to, this, that, and the third. And then somebody posts a picture of like a Mao Zedong, right? In like a group of socialists and communists, a lot of them wouldn't find that very political. It's just them talking, right? If you were to just post that on the openly, or say, man, Mao needs to come back, around just like a bunch of like Midwestern wine moms, a lot of them would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then you start arguing and things along those lines. It feels a lot more divisive and political when you already don't agree with it. And I feel like what's happening here is this billionaire, who we all know has a class interest to himself and people like him, to keep massive amounts of money, to use massive amounts of money in the way that he would like to, have almost to no checking on it whatsoever. And the conservative bias that comes with that, since a lot of conservatives have donors that would allow them and want them to be able to do whatever they want with their money because it helps them. And they fuel their campaigns. And obviously it's the cycle of billionaires fueling campaigns. Politicians win. They do the bidding of billionaires, whether it's they want to do it as in like they're like talking directly, or they just know they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them, and then they get more money, and then it's like that deathly cycle, right? And when it comes to even places like Fox News, a lot of lefties talk and progressives talk about how they specifically keep out this person or that type of people from like the programming. I think instead of it being a sort of like conspiracy, I think it's simply that they have their own interest for the types of people that are on. They have their own interest for what they think is like their Overton window is much smaller and much closer to the center. And so just the apparatus for which they make is hostile to progressive, anti-imperialist, and anti-capitalist views, right? And so with that being said, now comes in people with a lot of money, with a lot of political ties, and with a lot of want to do what they feel would be best for them and their money. And you know who does the bidding of rich people the best? Conservatives. Even if you're just like an anti-capitalist and you're like, oh, and you're like, oh, Democrats are bad. Oh, both parties are the same. And you're like a little loser like that. Even if you believe that, you can completely understand that even those liberals have the bidding and have a much stronger push to not be as insane as conservatives are. They don't have any limits there. And when they do have limits, they go past their limits to go even more insane. We'll be talking about that later in the stream. But this person who loves Fox News used his money to buy up massive portions of this multi-billion-dollar multinational company. He's now sitting on the board. And now all of a sudden, as the company is in massive flux and there's a lot of power vacuums, he's found himself in a great position to be able to push through some of the things that he's been wanting to do when it comes to the editorial process on CNN. And he may not want to say it, but what he wants to do is move the entire channel to the right. They want to cut diversity. They want to cut wokeness. And honestly, the person who they want to be like the gold star of what CNN should look like is Bret Baier. Now, we may know Bret Baier. Bret Baier is Fox News's legal correspondent. They have Brett Baier come on every time like there's a legal thing happening. He doesn't show up on the opinion pieces that much, but when it's like daytime Fox News, you'll see him like all of the time. He's been giving like his thoughts on things from like the election to Trump's like search warrant and the FBI and they're raiding his house, to he's come out recently against Biden being able to cancel student loan debt, all these certain things. Fuck me, Brett Baier used to be a real journalist long ago. Yes, long time ago. Same with like Brett Baier took a similar trajectory, just not as like, he doesn't have a parabola that's like closely reaching infinity the same way Tucker Carlson is. You know, like back like 30, 25, 30, 35 years ago, like Brett Baier and Tucker Carlson were on CNN and they were just like little weirdos, but they weren't like as bad as they are today. They've gone much more right and they've become much worse today. So CNN and other companies like them have left open a massive void for people like me, alternative media, for people that they would like to actually see, because a lot of them do the biddings of very rich people. And we can see this happening in real time. And I'm glad a lot of people have their eyes on it now and can see it now, because this media consolidation of everything that we watch and enjoy being owned by one single company and a single person and their shareholders and their board of executives can completely destroy one of the like 29% of American news, American like cable news. They can destroy like 30% of modern day American animation. They can use their massive media apparatus to change the course of like what we think of and what we focus on. We saw that segment, and I played that segment for you from like Brian Stelter's show, not simply to show you what he, you know, was doing on the show, but to tell you that there's a good reason for why I don't get on CNN as much as I do for Fox News, because they still had a basis of not being that crazy. That's starting to go away. And if these people get to do what they want, it'll go away forever. I'm not sure how far they'll go. They can only go so far without losing all of the money that they have. CNN still has a very dedicated base of people who are left wing. And at the end of the day, capitalism's still capitalism. And if they lose all of their followers and if they lose all of their, primetime viewers, the channel's just fucking done, right? I can't tell you anything that goes against go woke, go broke than just looking at this, right? Just fucking look at this, okay? $20 billion of market cap. And just so you know, market cap, it's not necessarily real money. Market cap shows the amount of money that people think the company is worth. And so the amount the company is worth in people's minds has dropped $20 billion in only a couple of weeks. Is there any way to stop it? Good question. A great way to stop it is stop paying for their shit, okay? Stop giving them money. These people are insane. No matter what, at the end of the day, these people still are capitalists. No matter how many like fascist leanings that they have, they still are capitalists and they still need to make money. And if they aren't making money, then things aren't going to last for much longer. They can think they can get away with some of this stuff, but just because you're rich doesn't mean you're like instantly like a big brain, super smart. A lot of companies run by a lot of very rich people have completely gone down. Now, I'm not going to give you like false hope and say that you'll be able to, completely fix this by like doing a strike and not paying for like HBO Max or like what HBO is going to be in the future, since it's merging with like Discovery Plus or whatever, and not like paying for things like owned by Warner Bros, even though it is like pretty like a lot of stuff that they already own. Because we've seen this before. We remember how like CEOs and billionaires, what they love to do is they get to the top of a company and then they push the company to give them the biggest leaving package as possible. They fucking destroy the company. They get their money and then they run and then disappear, right? And so it's possible that he and the rest of them could just be burning down the company so they can get a couple of dollars. And because just so you know, David Zaslav, if I remember correctly, he's in the top 5 most overpaid CEOs in all of America. I think he's paid like 125 million a year or something. It's a lot of money that he gets paid, far more money than he deserves, that many people have said. But since there's so many incredibly rich billionaires who've like bought in to the and who are sitting on the executive board now, who have so many connections, it was much easier for them to push through somebody who agreed with them on this. And now they're reaping the benefits, which is they get money while everybody below them and everybody who's actually helped to make incredible shows, incredible animation, who are working very hard in journalism, to have all of that shit be overturned and thrown into the trash because all they care about is the money that they can make from burning down something that they finally got their hands on. It's kind of like what rich people do to the environment, how they don't really give a shit about like the environment, and so that's why they're like destroying shit that isn't really matter to them. It's the same way they deal with these types of companies. It's very sad, but make some noise, talk about it, tweet about it, okay? Withhold your money from them, because still, at the end of the day, they are a publicly traded company. That means that they have a fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to make them money. If you can make sure that it's near impossible for them to be able to fulfill that obligation, what happens is that they have a much bigger likelihood of getting ousted, for somebody else coming in, and for things to get back on track with these bigger companies. Don't let them just take everything from you. All right. I'm here because CNN and MSNBC, Fox News left a lot of things to be desired and a lot of opinions that they have made their institutions hostile to. But this is something that we can't just ignore. CNN is getting worse, and it's because of Warner Brothers Discovery, and it's not okay.